John Matsudaira was an American painter active mainly in Seattle, Washington from the 1940s through 1970s. He was involved in the Pacific Northwest's vibrant Asian American art community, and is sometimes associated with the Northwest School of Artists. Early life. Takehise Matsudaira was born in Seattle, Washington on November 11, 1922, into a large Japanese-American family headed by Thomas and Teresa Matsudaira. He had 8 brothers and 4 sisters. At the age of 6 he was sent to live with relatives in the castle town of Kanazawa in Japan. Artistically inclined, he won a prize for a drawing in a city-wide art competition. On his return to the U.S. in 1935 at age 12 he studied at Maryknoll School, and then Odia High School, in Seattle. Following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor and American entry into the Second World War in 1941, Matsudaira, along with his family, was forcibly relocated to Camp Minidoka in Idaho. He later volunteered to serve in the U.S. Army's All-Nisei 442nd Infantry Regiment. After training at Camp Shelby in Mississippi, he was severely wounded in combat in Italy in 1944, and spent 2.5 years in recovery. It was an experience he rarely spoke of later, only telling a friend, "It's hard to explain to anyone who wasn't there." Career. On his return to Seattle in 1947, Matsudaira made use of the G.I. Bill to enroll in the Burnley Art School, where he studied with noted artists Jacob Elshon and Nick Damascus. At this time he was working in a semi-realist style, often painting urban or waterfront scenes, in oil and watercolor. He entered pieces in the Seattle Art Museum's Northwest Annual Jurado exhibition several years in a row, gaining considerable notice. He became friends with prominent artists such as Paul Horiuchi, Kenjiro Nomura, George Tsutakawa, and Mark Toby. The influence of Horiuchi and Toby, in particular, can be seen in some of his early work. Around 1950 Matsudaira began his career of over 30 years as a draftsman at the Boeing Aircraft Company. He had started out painting in the cramped kitchen of the apartment he and his wife Lillian shared in Seattle's First Hill neighborhood. But as the first of the 4 children came along, they were able to buy a more spacious home in the Rainier Beach neighborhood. Despite his commitments to work and family, Matsudaira was a dedicated artist, continually experimenting with new techniques, materials, and means of expression. A 1953 oil painting, Self-Portrait, is figurative yet highly symbolic, representing the foxhole in which he was nearly killed as a place of both death and rebirth. His art evolved toward abstraction, with works such as Adoration and Quiet Motion and Blue having a somber, introspective quality. Matsudaira's work was shown at the 1962 World's Fair in Seattle, the International Art Exhibition in Chinatown, the Seattle Art Museum, the Zoe Duzan Gallery, and many other institutions around the Northwest. Later years. For a time Matsudaira was a major figure in the Pacific Northwest's Asian American art community, even sharing an exhibition with Horiuchi, Tsutakawa, and Nomura at the Duzan Gallery in 1954. By the late 1970s, however, his output, never prolific, slowed to a trickle, and his art was largely forgotten. Matsudaira died in Seattle on January 30, 2007. His memorial service was held at St. Paul's Catholic Church. Legacy. In the 2010s, due to the efforts of family members, a handful of curators and journalists, and a general upsurge of interest in mid-century modern art in the Pacific Northwest, Matsudaira's work has been reintroduced to the public, with new appreciation for the scope and depth of his artistic career. In May 2016, the first ever retrospective of Matsudaira's life and work curated by David F. Martin, opened at the Cascadia Art Museum in Edmonds, Washington.